Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Smart Man, Smarter Woman, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. And thank you very much for joining us today. I am Steve Lotes.
And I am Juliet Aurora.
And we are your co-hosts. But before I introduce today's special guest, let's hear just a few words from my wonderful co-host, the smarter woman herself, Juliet. How are you doing today, Juliet? You look fabulous. I'm liking that little bit of purple in the hair.
Yeah, we're starting to try something new. I am excellent, thank you. And I'm actually going to keep my words at the beginning of this episode really, really short because I think we're going to have a fabulous conversation. I want to make sure that we leave enough time with our guest. We actually saw our guest live at an Action Coach conference in 2018. Absolutely one of the most memorable moments of the conference for me. Very inspiring. And I think the audience, you guys are going to absolutely love our conversation today. So I am going to turn it over to you so we can get started.
That's awesome, Juliet. Well, thank you very much for taking all of my introduction of Travis, but that's okay. I'm sure I'll find something to talk about. And as our listeners know, our goal with every episode is to hopefully provide some entertainment. That's usually at my expense, but that's okay. But most importantly, we want to provide you with some value, some insights, hopefully some gold nuggets to help you on your own entrepreneurial journey. And today we do have a truly great show, as Juliet mentioned, with our special guest, Travis Bell, the bucket list guy. He is billed as the world's #1 bucket list expert, and I can back that up as a self-appointed bucket listologist. And I love that term. I'm not even sure it really is in the dictionary, but it is now. It should be. Travis has obsessively studied the bucket list phenomenon and blended the world's best positive psychology principles to create his own unique bucket list life philosophy. He's designed life around his bucket list, and now he helps bucket listers all around the globe create and cross stuff off their own bucket list. So let's bring in our guest for today, Travis Bell. Welcome, Travis, and thank you for joining us all the way from Aussie land today.
Steve, Juliet, I am so stoked to be on your show. And hello, everyone up in Canada there and the big, vast land of North America. Really, really happy and I'm really stoked to reconnect with you guys after we hung out there in San Diego a couple of years back.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to this as well. As Juliet mentioned, we first heard Travis at a business excellence forum put on by Action Coach, and we were really blown away with this presentation. It was funny, it was poignant, and incredibly motivational. And there were some great speakers on the stage that day, including Darren Hardy, but it really was Travis that we remembered. And so when we started our podcast, he was on my list of people I was going to try to reach out to and see if we get an opportunity to get to know him a little better. And here we are. So perhaps to kick things off, Travis, if you could maybe just take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about your story. How did you become the bucket list guy? Yep. And how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. It's always interesting getting feedback when you're at an event like that and you've got all these other speakers. And it was an awesome event. Look, someone actually called me the bucket list guy. So I didn't call myself the bucket list guy. Someone actually called me the bucket list guy. I've been running around the world as the bucket list guy for the last 10 years, but prior, sort of reverse engineering it, my first business was actually in the personal fitness training industry. So I founded and franchised a chain of personal fitness training studios. That was my first business. I've never actually worked for anyone in my life. So hello, entrepreneur world. I know you. You are my brothers and sisters. I've never actually had a job, so I've always fallen on my own sword. But believe me, there's been times where I wish I had a nice, steady income job, but I don't think I'm very employable. The point being that I grew that. I was the first to franchise personal fitness training in Australia. I was one of the first trainers running around Melbourne. And I grew that into, I think we did, there's tens of thousands of clients, a chain of personal training studios, 2 million personal training sessions. But then the wheels started to come off. There was a few toxic people in my life, went through some relationship issues, things got on top of me, legal things, found myself slipping into depression. Instead of going on heavy antidepressants, because people were around me who were on them were kind of sleepwalking through their life, and I went, no, that's a bit of a Band-Aid effect. I want to get to the root cause. So I found myself in life coaching courses, personal development things, getting coaches, mentor, trying to get out of my own way, and really I had to force it at the start to get help, to get to the root cause. So I studied things like positive psychology, NLP, et cetera, to work myself out. And a friend of mine at the time said, why don't you teach this stuff? And that helped me really compartmentalize what I was kind of going through. It's like, yeah, that's why I'm spending all this money. That's why I'm reading all these books. That's what I need to teach. So, and for me, speaking was actually the big domino in my life that I had to push over to get over my own self. So I packaged it all up. I put on a 3-hour seminar. I nearly had to pay the 40 people to come to that seminar. It was crap compared to the one that you saw me do in San Diego. I'd like to think I've done my apprenticeship. But my first one, I started sharing my list to do before I die. I always had a written down list to do before I die since I was 18. A lot of people didn't know this about me. So this is 10 years ago. I'm 47 now, so at 37, I did that first seminar, but I had one actually written down since I was 18. It was my reason for getting out of bed in the morning, my reason for making decisions in business, my reason why. And I said to the room, the 40 people, who else has got one of these lists to do before you die actually written down? And everyone was like, no. Nah. So I was the only freak in the room. And I said, well, why do you get out of bed in the morning? What's your goals? And quite commonly it comes back as, I just want to pay off the house, put the kids through school, do a bit of travel when I'm older. Yeah, and probably sicker. So at the end of the day, well, what else? And so it inspired the group. It went from a kind of a crappy seminar to not so crappy seminar. And Joe, one of the people in the audience said at the end, how's all this list to do before you die stuff? It's really inspired people. It's like a bucket list. You're like the bucket list guy. And that was my ping, light bulb moment. Went home and registered thebucketlistguy.com. And I've been doing that ever since. But when I was registering, I was on the Google machine. I was on social media at the time. I was like, who's like the Mac Daddy? Who's like the expert? Who's the world's Oh, look, no one. So I literally called myself the world's #1 bucket list expert because no one else did. Now, Steve, Juliet, we're entrepreneurs. You've got to claim your space. If it's not claimed already, claim it. And tell as many people as you possibly can, which I'm doing right now. It's really funny because people ring me up for media interviews and things like this, and they're like, hey, I got this thing from Washington a few years ago. I was in a magazine. They go, we're doing this big spread on bucket lists, and we've got all these other experts from around the world, but we really want yours because you're the world's #1 bucket list expert. I'm like, yep, important. So, little did they know.
I love that.
Yeah. No, that is great. That really is great. No, you're right. You got to claim your space, right?
Oh, well, fake it till you make it. Here we are.
Yeah, well, and it's working. It's working. Well, and I also have to thank you on a personal level too, Travis. I mean, after we saw you in February 2018, I mean, Juliet and I had been putting together our 1-year plan, our 5-year plan, et cetera, and we sort of had a bucket list, and we kept looking at this bucket list. And we weren't ticking things off it. I mean, it was there. Well, after we saw you, we made a commitment to each other and said, what is the point in having the damn list if we're not actually going to try to do some of it?
There you go.
And so within, I think, 12 to 18 months of seeing you, we had knocked some pretty big ones for us anyway off that list. We'd always wanted to go to New York City, never been. And I mean, we're like an hour and a half by plane, right, from New York City. Never been. Wow. So we went and we spent Juliet's birthday in New York City with our daughter, had an awesome time. I am a big F1 fan. I wanted to go to my first F1 race, but I didn't want to go to the Canadian Grand Prix. My first F1 race had to be Europe. So we went to Europe. I went to the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona. We went to Paris. We went to London, knocked all this stuff off. Juliet had wanted a swimming pool in our backyard, which is kind of crazy when you live in Canada, but what the hell, we're crazy.
Hey, I get lots of use out of that pool.
Well, you do. It's crazy. But after wanting one for like years and years and years, we finally dug the hole and had somebody put a pool there. So it really, I do have to thank you for that. You triggered it.
Well, that's my job, man. You know, we're gonna wake up before we get given a use by date. You know, we want to wake people up, and you know, underpinning everything that I do is positive psychology. You know, like you said before, it's the science of happiness. You know, I just put this kind of cool brand over the top called Bucket List, but it's really about happiness. It's really about having people experience more of what brings them meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, and gratitude in life. So that's what it's about before they get given a use by date, before time runs out. So if I've got to get up there and give everyone basically a virtual cancer diagnosis to wake them up, if you remember that 80 squares exercise, and time's running out, that kind of does the trick. And but at the end of the day, it's about helping people, you know, put their own oxygen mask on first before they can help others. To be, I'd hate to use the word selfish, but self-centered. But this is also a self-leadership lesson as well. You know, be the example for your kids to follow. Someone that is glass half full, not half empty. Who, you know, like what I call a bucket lister, someone who's engaged in life. You know, and I say a bucket list and this is really good for your people, guys. I say a bucket list is a tangible life plan where our career plan or our business plan should fit into our life plan and not be the other way around. So what I'm really centered around is that work to live principle. You know, what I call right now is work-life blend in this current climate. Everyone right now with COVID and the pandemic, everyone's trying to figure out what is their new normal going forward. You know, what does my work-life blend actually look like from here on? What does my business look like from here on? But, you know, it's not just about business, it's really about life. And if you've got a tangible life plan, then and you're engaged in that, you will be engaged and you will be motivated. It will pull you out of bed in the morning and go after the things that you should be going after in your business. Because, you know, as you know, every business should provide you with two things and two things only, and that is to provide you with the cash flow. You guys know this better than anyone, the cash flow and the time flow for you to go and do the stuff that you want to do with you and your family, right? Before time's up. I mean, the thing is, what's easy to do is easy not to do.
And
absolutely. So you really skimmed over this, but it was something that resonated with me very strongly, which is your 80 squares exercise that you had us do. I actually have my 80 squares still stuck on my wall.
Really?
Yes. So
we're getting t-shirts. We're getting t-shirts with that made actually right as we speak.
Oh, cool.
Excellent. Oh, that's a great idea. So are you able to, I know it's a podcast, so you don't have the visuals that you did when you presented. Are you able to kind of explain to our audience what that excize would look like? And
easy
to go and do this?
Straight up. Look, no, that's good. Okay. It might get a little bit heavy, but look, at the end of the day, you know, people are on here to learn, they're on here to take action. And, you know, for all of our entrepreneurs, they might be in a space it's pretty hard to be an entrepreneur, pretty hard to be positive right now. You know, like the number one thing is, hey, switch off the news and stop talking to people about the pandemic every single moment of every single day. And, you know, in Australia, the sad thing about all this is depression over the last 6 months has doubled. You know, suicides doubled. You know, like it's serious. This is serious. We're already in a mental health crisis. Now it's even worse. We've even got this thing called the loneliness epidemic now, which is the adverse effect of social media. Google it. It's a real thing. So with all this positivity and me running around the world doing my thing and, you know, like all the positive memes and whatnot on social media, still the stats don't lie. Something is broken. So this might help. just to give people a bit more of a hurry up, okay? Because what I want for everyone through you guys is to help them separate their daily to-do list from their bucket list. See, right now, people are so busy being busy, right? And it's become very noisy, especially online. Every single business has gone online in the last 6 months, right? Every single business. So it's very noisy, it's very busy, it's very overwhelming. So I like to help create a space for people to work on their lives rather than just be in it.
We will continue with our conversation right after this message from a friend of the show. AIS Solutions is an award-winning cloud accounting firm serving small businesses all across Canada. If you want to move your bookkeeping from the desktops of the dark ages to the cloud and get your financials wherever you are, whenever you want them, then contact AIS Solutions' team of trained professionals today at www.aissolutions.ca. And now, back to our conversation.
And at the end of the day, we've got to separate our daily to-do list from our bucket list. And right now, our bucket list is swimming up there with our daily to-do list, and guess which one gets done first, right? It's their daily to-do list, especially in their business. So at the end of the day, let's separate the two. And we separate the two by writing stuff down, getting out of our head. It's a conscious exercise, okay? So going back to the 80 squares, the average age of death I'm sure, I don't know the stats right now, but the average age of death in Australia, which wouldn't be that much different to Canada, although you guys have got bears, so that could affect things.
Yeah, but we don't have kangaroos though. So
okay, there's the great leveler, I'm sure. We got koala bears. I mean, that's maybe the point being. The average age of death here in Australia is 79 for us guys and 83 for girls. So we when I talk, I put up 80 squares. This is really confronting. 80 squares. Every square represents a day on Earth. All right, let's call the average age of death 80, and then I say, okay, what I want you to do is cross out the ones that you've been alive. So if you're 40 something like me, half of them, a couple more, are gone. All right. I'm closer to 50, to be honest. So let's say 50. Actually, let's be really specific. 47 are crossed off. Okay. And then I say, okay, look down at your piece of paper. Look down, and people are like, oh shit, okay. And remember, if you crossed out ones that are less than 40, they're, I've got all the time in the world. But over 40, people are like, oh dear. And then I ask 3 poignant questions, which kind of are driving the knife, and here's where I twist it, is I say, okay, well, how many people in the room, and I've done this to rooms of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. I did a TED talk a few years ago, a TEDx talk to 2,000 people, and did this with them. So who in the room knows people have been diagnosed or died from cancer? And every single person puts up their hand. All right, just imagine a sea of people, 1,000 people put up their hand. And at home, you can, put up your hand. How many people know people have been diagnosed or died from cancer? Pretty much everyone. Okay. The second question is, how many people do you know have been diagnosed or died from cancer? Show of fingers. So imagine 1,000 people putting up their fingers. Some have got 2, some have got 10, some are putting up 10 and feet. It's like, whoa. And then I have everyone look around the room. You can just imagine what I look at when I do this. So people are like, holy shit, okay. And then I say, how many of them that you just showed us made their 80 squares? Got to 80. And then you hear a pin drop. The answer's 1, 0s, 1s and 2s. And I say, well, what do there is no someday. That ain't day of the week. That is not a day of the week. There is no perfect time. We don't know how long we got left. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to get given a use by date from a bloke in a white coat or a woman in a white coat to say, hey, guess what? You got a year. what are you waiting for? Hurry up, entrepreneurs, set up your business, listen to these guys, embrace the tools, don't fight it, get off the freaking fence, make some decisions, hire that other person, get in the cloud, hurry the hell up, right? Hurry the hell up, because we don't know when if and or when, like what are we waiting for? And I want people to live a regret-free life rather than a regret-full life. I've been doing this work for 10 years. I've been saying the same thing for 10 years. And now we've got a bunch of bucket list coaches now, and we've got certified bucket list coaches now in 22 countries teaching this stuff.
Awesome.
And at the end of the day, we're waking people up. We're doing our little bit to try and change the narrative that is the matrix. Try and change the narrative around depression. Trying to change the narrative about personal development and coaching, life coaching. We've got certified bucket list coaches, which is like a life coaching framework, but without saying life coaching, because that's met with skepticism. So we've got certified bucket list coaches. We literally, from families to Fortune 500 companies, which are what I've been doing pretty much for the last 10 years, helping people at all sorts of different levels, which a bunch of different programs, helping them wake up in some form or another to go live their list before it's too late. And it's not just for them. It's not just for us here on this call. It's for their kids as well, if I want to do business, because I know you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening and watching, I want to do business with a bucket lister. I want to do business with someone who's enthusiastic about life. I want to do business with someone who is glass half full, who's always got a fun, adventurous, tale of adventure kind of story to share with me. I want to do business with a person like that. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Versus someone who's bitching about their lot in life, how sick they are, the pandemic, and everything else that's going wrong.
Yeah.
No, I want to do business with the bucket lister. So what have we got to change? Well, first of all, what we've got to do is get this stuff out of our head and onto paper. That's the number one thing. And actually writing stuff down, like writing goals down, you've got a 42% more likelihood of actually manifesting, believe it or not. You might as well write it down. Worry about the what and the why, not about the how.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you said that you had your bucket list when you were 18, and most people at the age of 18 aren't even thinking about things like that. But after we came back from listening to you, and Steve and I sort of formalized and said, okay, and we actually broke our bucket list down to 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So our daughter at the time was 17 and watched us do this exercise. And then I remember her, and I guess on her own, and she didn't tell us that she actually made her own bucket list. But I remember one of her friends being over who was struggling a little bit about finding some direction in their life. And she was walking him through how to create a bucket list. And she was 18.
Very cool. Yeah.
And all of that is because she saw us doing it. So
there you go.
All of you out there listening, it's not only important for you, it's important for your kids as well.
Yeah. It's contagious in a good way. Let's get our own pandemic going, eh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a better virus.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and there's such a need. I mean, the amount of entrepreneurs we meet who are just in overload, that they're working crazy hours. They're, working hard at their business. There's no balance. And they don't take the time to breathe, and just, sit back and, what the hell am I doing and why am I doing this? And something like, the bucket list coaching, I think could be a life changer for so many people. So I think that's awesome.
Well, funnily enough, what we I've just literally finished a program with Action Coach headquarters in Las Vegas. So I ran a 12-week bucket list life plan program for their head office. And now we're running a bucket list life plan for all their master licensees around the world. So we start that next month.
Awesome.
And it's all online because we have to. But it is exactly that. It's about helping those people, and they're all entrepreneurs, helping them take time out of their life to work on their life. Okay. Yeah. And I'm very specific. I don't want anything to do with your business. Your business is purely a vehicle to make this stuff happen. But people don't give themselves permission to dream. They don't give them, they're just so caught up. What this does is it decreases noise and increases the focus on what actually makes us happy, what gives us that sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And it's so not what you think. It's not about just travel here, guys, either. It's not about just running marathons and climbing Mount Everest and all that crap. That's, it's about gratitude. We have this concept called a reverse bucket list as well. And we've also got this concept called a future bucket list. And, maybe there's something that we can do for your community, guys. Like maybe we put on do a program for your guys to, because if this is got people thinking, then people can be left up to their own devices, but they do need some guidance. Because I know, like Darren Hardy actually said it at that seminar. I remember this, the one that you saw me speak at, and it was 85% of people who go to a seminar don't do anything. They get 8 foot. They get 8 foot and bulletproof and leave the room hugging it out and high-fiving it with everyone, and then just get onto emails and Facebook and life just gets in the way. There's only a chosen few, such as yourselves, that actually do something, and that's a rare breed.
Well, I can tell you we certainly haven't done everything we had planned on doing when we leave those things, but we did come up, I think, with a little, I wouldn't call it a secret, but something that works for us. And we decided a few years ago, because we used to attend a lot of conferences and events because we're big learners. We love learning. And we used to come away from them every time with all these notes and all these great ideas, and Jesus, where do you start? And so we made ourselves a promise a few years ago and said that the one thing we have to do, usually on the plane on the way home, is pick 1 or 2, 3 at the maximum of all the things we learned. This is what we're going to implement. Yeah. And once we started doing that, we found that we were actually doing stuff and it was working. And that was a huge thing for us when we started doing that.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's we do a lot of seminars and read the books and get a lot of shelf help. Like all these books behind me, I haven't read any of them. They're that's just, I don't even know if they're real. I think that's like a fake. I think this is a Zoom background. Is this a Zoom background? It might be a Zoom background. Yeah.
It's very good. I don't know. That's actually a 3D background that moves. Yeah, that's awesome.
They're all plastic.
And for those of you in the audience that can't see it, it is a bookshelf with rows and rows and rows of books behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great.
I look smarter though, don't I? Yes, I do.
For sure.
Yes, you do, Travis. Yes.
Well, one thing I have to ask, and that is, of your adventures.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Well, one that you can share with our audience. Okay, this is a family show.
But you're Canadian. But you're Canadian.
That's right. We're the nice people, right? At least that's what the Americans keep telling us anyway.
Yeah.
Of your adventures, what is one that sticks in your mind as, that's got to be up there as one of the top things?
Look, there's lots to share. Obviously, I've done over 300 things on my bucket list so far, and it's got heaps more to go. So I won't tell you about the time that I was a nude model for an art class. I will not tell you that. and conquered that fear. I won't tell you about that story.
Thank you.
Yes, that's all right.
Although that sounds like a pretty interesting story.
Could you share the painting, perhaps?
Look, funnily enough, look, no, it's abstract, mate. It's abstract. That is actually it. It's abstract.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, I'll send you photos privately, mate. No, Steve, just a tip, because I know you're writing this down now as one of your bucket list items, mate. Here's the thing: don't do it in the middle of winter. Just saying. All right,
good advice. Yeah.
And don't do it in the art studio that's next to the coffee shop where you get coffee every single morning, where the local, with respect, the local gay barista serves you coffee every morning, who also likes art. Just from there on, let's just say from there on, let's say I got a little bit of sugar in my coffee, from there on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. But no, look, probably one of the most poignant ones. I mean, I went to Everest Base Camp on the Tibetan side of Advanced Base Camp. I've done an Ironman triathlon. I went to you love this, is Eurovision Song Contest final. I went to Burning Man, done a bunch of charity things as well. I spent Christmas in a HIV orphanage for 250 kids, HIV-affected kids, orphans in Cambodia, playing a not-so-small elf over Christmas and packing stuff for them. But probably the most poignant things, and it goes from I've surfed big waves. I'm a surfer, and I've done all that adrenaline kind of stuff. But now it's all about legacy. One of the ones that I'm building at the moment is obviously bucket list coach all around the world, being the founder CEO of all that. But I've done a lot of adventuring with my dad. My dad and I'm adopted, and one of the things on my list to do before I die, even before it was a bucket list, was to do a hike with Dad, because he was, and I'm sure a lot of the entrepreneurs in your group could appreciate this, that he's a man's man. He's a worker. He's a diesel mechanic, fitter and turner, in the same job since he was 16 through to retirement, and he's in the unions, the whole bit. And here I am, his adopted son, a serial entrepreneur. I don't think he still understands what the hell I do. People pay you to come to speak in front of them. What the hell have you got? Anyway, Dad. So because we spoke a different language growing up, we always locked horns, but it wasn't until I put a talk, to do a hike with Dad was actually on my list of, to do a big hike with Dad. I actually wrote it down because I knew that, going forward, it'd be better if we got along. And so we did that in Tasmania. I found myself in a 4-seater plane with my dad, who's he's a hiker, a bushwalker. He does sea kayaking and stuff like this. I found myself in a 4-seater plane with my dad, myself, and his 2 best mates. We got dropped off in southeast Tasmania in the old growth forest area, and our mission in Tassie is the southernmost part of Australia, southernmost state of Australia. So our mission, the plane drops us off and leaves, and our mission was to walk back along the Great South Coast Track Trail of Tasmania, walk back to a place called Cockle Creek, which is the southernmost town in Australia. Okay. Have you seen the movie Deliverance?
Yes.
Cockle Creek.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we did this tour. We did this, and we're about 5. It took us. They say pack 8 to 15 days worth of food. So it took us about 9 days. River crossings, up and down mountains. Nearly lost him a couple of times. Pretty wild, and we're about 500 meters from the end, and I was walking frustratingly behind him, and he said, and I said, Dad, I just got something to share with you. This has been on my bucket list. This is just after I was named the bucket list guy. This has been on my bucket list for the last 5-6 years to do this walk with you. And in what I thought was going to be a massive father-son hug it out movie moment, he's just gone, Oh, yeah? And just kept walking. And I'm like, Dad's not a man of emotion, right? So, and then we did the selfies. We had lunch, the whole bit, and then he said, "What you said before? What's a bucket list?" I said, "Mate, it's all the stuff you want to do before you die." And then he turned to me with emotion, little, not too many, but a tear in his eye, and he said, "Oh, this has been, I won't swear, but this has been effing special."
Very nice.
Still no father-son hug moment, though. I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
And we're on the bus back to the major city in Tasmania there called Hobart. And he said, Trav just turned to me on the bus and he said, "Well, what else is on this list to do before you die? What's on this bucket list of yours?" I said, "Oh, I'll get back to you. There's heaps of stuff on it. It's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm out of personal training. I'm kind of doing this now." And he's like, "Right." 6 months later, a friend of mine who's a New Zealander, he's a mountaineer, Grant, he's got no toes in his left foot. So, they all these New Zealanders think they're Sir Edmund Hillary. I swear he all these mountaineers sit up at high camp and compare what limbs they're missing around their little Bunsen burner. And Grant goes, "Look, Trav," because I cycle with Grant. He said, "Look, I know that you've got this, go to Everest Base Camp on your list." I said, "Yep, I have, mate." And he goes, "Well, I'm going in about 8 months' time. We're going to Mount Everest." I'm like, "Oh, easy. I just want to go to base camp. I'm a surfer, not a mountaineer." And he said, "No, what you can do, you can come along on our expedition. There's 13 of us going to the top." Grant said, "I'm going to peel off at Camp 1, not going to the top, but you can come and join us, and you can peel up at base camp or advanced base camp. It's up to you." I said, "Oh my God, how much is it going to be?" And he said, "Oh, about 15 grand. I said, "I haven't got 15 grand. He goes, "You know what? I know, but either way, but you want to go that bad, you'll find a way." I'm like, no truer word has been spoken, right? I found a way. If the why is strong enough, the how will work itself out. This is and this is what all your guys have got to understand. Only worry about the what and the why. Don't worry about the how. The funny thing about it, when you get more conscious around this process, we have a way of finding a way.
Yeah.
We have to trust in that. The point being, I gave Dad a call. "Dad, that bucket list?" He's like, yeah, I've been thinking about that. "Well, mate, we're going to Mount Everest through Tibet." "Trav, where the fuck is Tibet?" "Well, look, it's part of China. It's not part of China. Look, either way," he's going, "Trav, you realise I've never been out of Australia before." I said, "Exactly, mate. That's why we're going." Since then,
Awesome.
Through Tibet, advanced base camp at the highest point in the world that you could walk to. Since then, we went to did a Kokoda track in Papua New Guinea together. We did Machu Picchu. We did the Inca Trail. The morning of my 40th birthday, there at Sungate at Machu Picchu with 10 other bucket listers that I took with us. Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa, after doing a game drive there in Kruger National Park, all with Dad, and I took Mum along with that one. And now we're best mates.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome.
That's why we do this stuff.
Yep.
What a great
absolutely
story.
Right. If you didn't have that bucket list, you'd have had nowhere to go.
Well, there you go.
No, that's great. Well, that brings us to the part of the show that we call the Smart Man, Smarter Woman version of James Lipton's Q&A from Actors Studio, where he used to ask every guest the same questions on each episode. And we would like to do that now if you are ready.
Go for it.
All right. What one word best defines an entrepreneur?
Persistence.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I was going to say something really funny there, but I will not because this is PG. I'll go with what I'd love to do. I'd love to be a professional surfer. There's this thing called skill getting in my way.
Okay. Practice.
That's it.
What profession would you like never to attempt?
With respect, accountant. I pay well, pay the professionals, get that stuff done.
That's okay, Travis. You're preaching to the converted. It's okay.
There you go.
What sound or noise do you love?
Wow. The ocean.
Awesome. What book would you recommend every entrepreneur needs to read?
Look, I'm going to come back to maybe for a realignment, but this is the one that is actually real. I'm reaching back to grab.
Oh, so there is one real book on that case.
One.
All right.
There's, I don't know, a couple of hundred books here. This one is actually real. The others are fake.
Perfect.
But Happier by Tal Ben-Shahar. He's a positive psychologist. This was really poignant in my journey because it was actually given to me by a friend. Because when I was in an unhappy place, I was catching up with people for coffee, et cetera, and they were like, "Look," a friend of mine said, "Look, you miserable prick. Here's a book on happiness. Read it. We're over it. It's about time." So, right place, right time, all based on positive psychology. In here was an exercise called the MPS exercise. 3 intersecting circles in a Venn diagram. What gives you meaning, what gives you pleasure, and what are your strengths? And in the middle is your calling. So I did this, and I got motivational speaker. And I'm like, really? That's my thing?
Yeah.
But, I stepped into it. It was a massive sign that I'm on the right track with this. And so I encourage, I've encouraged so many people to get this book, and I've gifted it a bunch of times as well. It's called Happier by Tal Ben-Shahar. Okay. It helps us realign, and I dare say realign our business owners too on what gives them, what are their strengths, what gives them meaning, what gives them purpose.
Perfect. All right. We'll have to check that one out.
And you can tell that is a book that you have revisited, because when he held it up, there are Post-it notes sticking out of it, and you can tell that it's a well-worn, well-loved book. So
those are the important ones.
Yeah, there is. That I'll put it back in the fake bookshelf.
Please, you were destroying the image there. So we need to get that fixed.
That's the one that I read. All the rest of it.
Yeah. Perfect. And our last question: when your own entrepreneurial journey is completed, what do you hope your legacy is?
Change the narrative around mental health.
Awesome. And for any of our listeners who would like to reach out to you and connect, what is the easiest way for them to do that?
Oh, look, people can actually send me an email if they want to, trav@thebucketlistguy.com. They can go to my website,
Perfect.
thebucketlistguy.com. If they're interested in becoming a coach, they can do that at bucketlistcoach.com, or the socials. Oh,
yeah, we've got.
I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
Not yet.
What is it? TikTok? TikTok?
Hey, you're asking the wrong person. But
what's that dance that you do on social media, Steve? What's that, mate? Is that anyway? Yeah. Probably Instagram. Instagram is bucketlistguy.travbell, and we've got LinkedIn and Facebook, Trav Bell.
In the show notes, we will list all of your social channels, your websites. So someone wants to reach you, and we'll even put your email in there. So that's great. Do you have any, before we wind things down, do you have any final thoughts you would like to share with our audience of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, look, it's not a final thought. It's more of a challenge to them. So here's a challenge. Write your bucket list down and actually send it to us. Now, I include myself in there. Send it to Steve, send it to Juliet, and send it to me. I'm serious, okay? Rather than just listening here and go, oh, that's nice, and then as soon as this episode finishes, you get busy in life, right? Go to my TED, go and watch my TED Talk. That'll introduce you to a concept called the My Bucket List Blueprint that you guys know. And in that, I introduce and unpack this 12-step process for how to write a personally meaningful and holistic bucket list. We'll probably put that in the show notes as well. It's called Life's Too Short by Trav Bell. YouTube it, and then have a watch of that. Get this stuff out of your head, get it onto paper, take a photo of that piece of paper and email it to us. I dare you.
Awesome.
And you never know when you do this there could be a prize for you if you do this.
I like prizes. Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you. What about you, Juliet? Do you have any final words for us before we wind down?
Not really. Again, so inspired. Going to revisit our bucket list, I think, and make sure that it's still on track. I mean, we usually look at it twice a year, and I think June we missed because we usually do it when we're away, and we weren't away. But I like the idea of the bucket list challenge and introducing it to our team, and maybe doing a bucket list challenge with our team. So
awesome! Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. Okay.
So thank you very much, Travis.
Happy to help. Happy to be of
Okay,
service.
that's great. Thank you,
All
Travis.
right.
And that brings us to our words of wisdom. As everyone knows by now, I am a quote nerd. I love quotes. And so our words of wisdom for this episode are from my good friend, Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from that safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain.
Perfect.
And I thought that was appropriate for today's conversation.
Definitely.
And so again, thank you, Travis. This was fantastic. Thank you, Juliet. Couldn't do this without you. And most importantly, thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in and giving us a listen. We sincerely hope you found some value here today. I'm pretty sure you did. If you did, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast. You can find us in all the regular places, iTunes, Spotify, or just go to the website, smartmansmarterwoman.com, easy to remember. Thank you. Until next time, take good care of yourself and those that you love. Bye for now.